Warning, this podcast contains spoilers. We'll be discussing seasons 1 through 4 of Code Lyoko and may refer to any and all supplementary material from the novels through to the live-action Code Lyoko Evolution. If you do not yet know which code Alita uses to deactivate the towers, or if you do not yet know which musical instrument Jim Morales plays, you're about to find out! Here we are, going far to podcast all that we love. Hello everyone, and welcome back to A Podcast Without Danger, where we will be returning to the past week by week to rewatch and review every episode of Code Lyoko, the 2003 animated series created by Thomas Roman and Tanya Palumbo. Let's get ready to virtualize as we go through the warm fuzzy moments, near-death experiences, and incredibly silly jokes from this weird and wonderful show. I'm Soul Jelly, and stepping into the scanners with me are my wonderful co-hosts, my fellow Lyoko warriors, Quitter10 and Dianna, with 2 N's, and 2 A's, and 1 I, and 1 D. How's it going?
Doing pretty well. It's, for those of you who are curious, and I'm sure you guys already figured it out, but we're all in different time zones. So I'm in the US, and my 2 lovely co-hosts are in Europe. So it's morning for me at the time of recording this, which is really cool. So, I mean, it's Monday. So far, I've had a great start to the day, and I'm looking forward to talking about this episode.
Sweet. Shall we? Let's crack on. Honestly, let's do it. Let's do it. Episode 2 of Season 1 is Seeing is Believing, written by Francois Charpiat and storyboarded by Louis Rouy. In this episode, Odd tries to form a school band while Xana takes control of the school's electricity supply. Did you 2 have any initial thoughts on this episode?
When we rewatched it, or like the first time we watched it?
Kind of either or. If it's been a while, like, did you kind of get back into it, like, with anything in mind, or do you remember the first time you watched it? Lord knows I didn't, it being nearly 20 years ago.
No, I don't remember the first time I watched this episode. But like, it's always pretty funny to think about how Xana goes straight from teddy bear to nuclear explosion.
Like,
yeah, for sure.
that escalated quickly.
And I completely forgot that Jeremy asked the engineer at the beginning about materialization, basically, without outright saying materialization.
Yeah, right. He really just goes all out with that. It's great. Yeah, let's get on to the recap, and I mean, we're going to end up talking about that pretty much straight away, so let's go for it. So, the episode begins with a panning shot of the idyllic Caddock Academy. Cut to science class, where the bearded professor explains nuclear power to a class of bored students. Ulrich watches a flock of surprisingly well-rendered seagulls fly by. Odd doodles a picture of Kiwi while Sissy reads magazines under the desk. Our resident nerd, Jeremy Belpoir, is the only one remotely interested in Bearded Guy's lecture. Jeremy asks a question. Sir, I'd like to know if a process exists for fusing virtual particles and materializing them in the real world. Odd smirks. He knows Jeremy's thinking about his waifu, Alita. But, like, real talk, he straight up is like, hey, is materialization real?
Yeah, it's a bit off topic.
Yeah, and I think it's really funny, too, that it just cuts to Odd. Like, his face after Jeremy asks the question, he's like, are you serious? And also, he's a really good artist.
Yeah, he is.
Like, he does a really great job drawing Kiwi.
There's a cute Kiwi. Speaking of, we still don't know, like, we don't learn about, like, who or what Kiwi is. Like, we don't even know Odd keeps him in his room. We don't even know his name. We just know Odd's doodling a dog. And then with like the context of the next episode, which is where I think Kiwi is introduced, it makes sense somehow that he's doodling his own dog because, you know.
That's cute, actually. You know, I actually really like that from a storytelling perspective. It's just like a kind of neat blink and you'll miss it detail, like, oh, Odd likes dogs, he's drawing a silly dog drawing or whatever, and then you're like, oh, this is the dog from Odd's drawing last episode. He's like a real thing, you know?
Exactly.
So, full disclosure here, but like I went to art school and I do not have a bloody clue what Jeremy is asking here. Like I was like, virtual particles, like is this just some kind of like Code Lyoko technobabble? So I looked it up, and apparently virtual particles do exist, but they don't seem to be what Jeremy actually implies that they are from this context. So here he's implying that like, since everything's made of particles, Ali is a virtual person, so she must be made of virtual particles, right? But actually, my understanding of virtual particles is basically it seems that quantum mechanics predicts that particles are popping in and out of existence all the time, and they only exist temporarily, so that's why we call them virtual particles. So, I don't know, I feel like it's just a really weird bit of technobabble, and it really made me laugh to analyse it and be like, I
mean, to be fair, he's like 13. I wouldn't expect him to understand quantum physics.
Well, he can operate the supercomputer. Like, I am holding him to a standard here, Twitter.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I think it's really funny that he just kind of outright asks that, and then Mrs. Hertz, or Ms. Hertz, is just so quick to be like, oh, Jeremy's a dreamer, he likes science fiction, and everybody laughs at him.
Poor guy.
Right? Like, yeah, the whole next bit of the scene is like the bearded guy's like, you're thinking too much into science fiction, and Hertz is like, Jeremy's a dreamer, even though he's our top student, and everyone just bursts out laughing, and Sissy and Herb are having this moment where they're just like, look at this dork, whatever. So funny. I also love...
Sissy was probably having a field day with
Truly. I also really like kind of... I know Sissy and Herb aren't friends exactly, but it kind of seems like they really bond in this moment. And I think we all have a friendship where we kind of bond because we hate the same things rather than actually like have anything in common. And I can totally see Sissy and Herb as having that like stand at the side of a room and like bitch about people at parties kind of relationship, you know?
Honestly, yeah, that is pretty much who they are.
Miss Hertz can't get her projector working. Suspicious. The gang seems to have learned from last time because they suspect foul play from Dianna straight away, although maybe the sinister background music is also tipping them off. Class ends, everyone walks out to the school grounds, and Yumi and Sissy have a brief stare down. I love that bit, by the way, where they just like look at each other.
Side. Yeah, and did you notice that like when they're approaching Yumi, it's the exact scene that we see in the intro.
Yes!
Yeah,
like the theme song.
A lot of the intros, I mean, a lot from the scenes from the season 1 intro are like pulled from this episode, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I think the only one that isn't is the one with Odd, and that's like straight from Teddy Godzilla, so...
Yeah, and I don't think I ever noticed that until I watched it the other day. Like, throughout my entire... Because I've seen this episode, multiple times. And it just really didn't dawn on me until the other day when I was rewatching it and doing notes, and I was like, oh my god, like that's from the title sequence.
I love that. That's so... It's like when there's a book or a movie and people say the title of it, like, in the show.
Yes!
You're like, oh my god, that's it! That's what it is! Like, when Alita enters Code Lyoko, I'm always like, that's it! That's the name of the show!
She did the thing!
I love it. Yumi's friends arrive. Jeremy's in the middle of airing his suspicions that Dianna is on the attack. Okay, Odd, it seems, hasn't learned from last time because he tells Jeremy it's just a short circuit and he shouldn't get too excited. The gang is hanging out when our man JP, Principal Jean-Pierre Delmas himself, arrives on the scene. He declares approval for Odd's request to start his new band. The Foxtrot Fanatics? It's the Poprock Progressives, sir, Yumi corrects him. God, that is such a tongue twister. Poprock Progressives.
Yeah,
it really is.
It is a bit of a, yeah.
Like Foxtrot Fanatics is a lot easier to say.
Truly.
They should have just gone with that.
It definitely flows off the tongue better.
I did come up with some alternate names because I'm not really a fan of either of them, if you guys want to indulge me.
Yeah, please.
So, the doo-wop Deadbeats, the Bluegrass Bandits, the Smooth Jazz Sopranos, the Death Metal Dynamos, the Lo-Fi Hip-Hop Beats to relax and study to.
Iconic.
No, I'm hearing a resounding silence.
No, I love those, honestly, all of them. They sound really good, especially the lo-fi beats to study to. Like that's iconic.
Oh my gosh, that girl, like, doing her homework has saved my life, I swear to God.
Oh yeah, absolutely. She has formed a generation for sure. If you have any other alternate band names for the Loco Warriors, email us at podcastaboutdanger@gmail.com. Let us know. The only caveat to the school band is that it's open to everyone who wants to audition. Which, fair enough. Odd sinks to the ground and throws his arms in the air in triumph. He's real excited about something he's going to ditch after a single episode. It's true, it's so sad. We never see this again.
I know. I wish that they could have continued the band, especially with Jim being in it, because, like, then eventually we could have led up to moments like the ones that happen in Code Earth, where Jim temporarily joins the group. There would have been like a potential, growing suspicion of why are they ditching band practice all the time? I am carrying this band on my shoulders with my trombone.
Right. Also, like, it could have been a really cool thing where it's like they need an excuse to leave a class and Jim's like, oh, hey, we need a last minute band practice or something. And like they kind of, use that as an excuse as well. Could also be another way that could have tied in really nicely.
Yeah, he definitely could have helped cover for them.
Oh well, R.I.P.
Alas.
The gang has to host auditions for their final member, but Jeremy says bye for now. He's off to sit in his room and link up with his waifu, and to check up on Xana's shenanigans. And Ulrich Stern title card! In Jeremy's room, he's typing away, and something is strange. Aelita's talking to him, but he can't hear anything. Finally, he connects to Lyoko and tells her the school's been having electricity problems. She asks the obvious question. Does he think Xana's behind it? She hasn't noticed anything on Lyoko, but Jeremy's going to scan. In the meantime, he's off to the cafeteria to enjoy some delicious Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts. I mean, they're even not that bad. And like, speaking of, I think this is the first time in the series we actually see the forest sector. Even though, the first forest sector activated tower is next episode.
I was a little disappointed that this activated tower wasn't in the forest sector. It was like, you teased this sector that looks really cool and it's different, and then suddenly we're going back to the desert, but no.
But the cut to Ulrich pushing his tray away with the Brussels sprouts kills me.
So good.
Because, like, Aelita's like, yes, I know what they are, but I've never tasted them. Are they good? And then, like, immediately we cut to Ulrich making, like, a gagging noise, pushing his lunch tray away with the Brussels sprouts on it.
There's also a scene, like, maybe a couple of frames later where you see Jeremy with, like, this huge smile on his face and, like, his fork halfway through his mouth.
Grinning.
Which, perfect. So I just want to interrupt real quick for the cafeteria scene, because I have a question, and it's, what the heck is Aelita doing on the web on Lyoko all day? Like, she comes to Earth so naive, but she's got unlimited browsing time, so, like, what the hell is she learning about?
Brussels sprouts.
She's, like,
Obviously.
Googling Brussels sprouts and suddenly knows the entire history of them and their, like, molecular structure and every single piece of Brussels sprouts trivia known to man.
Yeah, I mean, she's probably only really looking up things that might be relevant to the Lyoko Warriors, or maybe something that they might mention in passing to her. But genuinely, I don't know. You're right, because she comes to Earth and she has no idea what the hell's going on. And, like, even after their one class, she's like, yes, I like school, but you guys have a lot of wars.
Right?
Like, you fight a lot. And it's like, yeah, well,
Hate to break it to you, but this world sucks, and now you're in it. I don't know. I mean, I was 10 years old in 2003, and I think I was probably just on Club Penguin, so maybe that's what she was doing.
Oh, Club Penguin. Rest in peace.
Truly. Jeremy is happy with the lunchtime menu, but Ulrich is decidedly not. In the cafeteria, Odd's handing out flyers for the Poprock Progressives, which Jim Morales seems interested in. Odd tries to avoid giving Nicholas Palakiov a flyer after a stare-down with him, Sissy, and Herv. Then, Odd Delagobia title card. At the vending machine, Odd watches a mediocre soup dribble into his takeout cup. Jeremy relays his concerns from earlier to the group. Yumi, Odd, and Ulrich watch a series of auditions. We see Emmanuel, my lad, but he's too heavy metal for their liking. Next up is Noemi, who Odd's rather infatuated with, which seems to cloud his judgment as regards to her actual ability to play the drums, and Yumi and Ulrich are not impressed. This scene is so fun to me.
Yeah, and it's also interesting to note that Emmanuel's name in the English dub is Mike. And he looks exactly like, and I believe has the same voice as William.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. I did notice that. Like, he sounded exactly the same.
Like, I literally have in my notes, Mike is William before William is William.
I mean, he even, like, has similar clothing. I haven't looked up the VA, but I could definitely see them being the same.
Yeah, like, the only difference is the hair. But, like, he's wearing the same exact clothes, and I think it sounded exactly like the same voice actor.
Yeah, totally.
I'd literally never noticed that. I mean, we talked pre-recording about how I tend to just not really notice the voices being different. I don't know why that is. That's just a Soul Jelly thing. But yeah, I hadn't even thought about that, but you're exactly right. I mean, maybe he's a cousin or, like, you know, a stepbrother or something. I'm totally going to add that to my headcanon, personally. I don't know.
Who knows?
Yumi title card. Back in his room, Jeremy's investigating a strange anomaly. 400,000 volts in a high-tension pylon? That's not right. His conversation with Alita is cut off as the computer goes dead. The electricity at the school and in the city is definitely on the fritz, with light bulbs failing to work and crackles of visible electric charge lapping around lampposts. It's gotta be Xana, right? In the gym, Jeremy tells the gang that this is Xana's doing. He's almost sure of it. They're dealing with electrical failures and a pylon set to explode due to being way over the voltage limit. But why would Xana do that? I don't know, maybe because he wants to kill you guys? Like,
Yeah, it's a bit, I mean, whatever it is, it's pretty obvious. I mean, it should be pretty obvious to them that any of Xana's plans, like, spell trouble for them. And if not for them, then at least for somebody.
Do you think...
Yeah, the only reason that Xana does anything is to kill them.
Do you think, though, that it
much.
took them a while to notice that? Like, maybe they were, like, kind of assumed that Xana was focused on humanity in general, and then they had this moment of, like, oh, shit, like, Xana wants us in particular. Could you imagine that scene being like, oh, shit, like, we're targets. Like, we are literally in the center of this.
Maybe.
That's actually a pretty good point, because you got to think that starting out when they were very new to all of this with Lyoko, they found Aelita, they knew about Xana and that he was, like, causing attacks, but probably didn't put two and two together right away that it was, like, specifically targeting them.
I think we will at some point soon have a post-episode discussion about Xana's psychology and motivations. So I'm really excited to talk about that because I think it's going to be awesome.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Sissy, Nick, and Herb appear, and Sissy insists that Nick be given the chance to audition. Odd asks what he plays. His mum's pots and pans, which, by the way, made me, like, laugh out loud. It's such a funny line. To the gang's chagrin, Nick is actually pretty damn amazing on the drums and blows him away with an excellent drum solo. Sissy and Herb look smug as heck. There's no way he's not getting in the band.
I think this is the first time we learn, like, Nicholas's name.
Is it? Ooh. Cool.
Yeah, and I don't think Herb is, like, named yet, actually.
Yeah, actually, you're right, because Nicholas doesn't even have a line in the first episode. Herb says, like, one word, and it's Sissy. And then, like, that's it. We don't even know who Herb is. And I don't know. You guys heard when Nicholas was doing his audition, and at the end he was like, yeah. That did not sound a single thing like
normal Nicholas, right?
Right.
I was totally thinking that too. Like, he's like, yeah. And then normally Nicholas is all like,
yeah, he sounds like a big, like, doofus usually. And, like, him saying that one line after his audition, it almost reminded me of Odd.
Oh, interesting. I mean,
I don't think, yeah. They probably didn't have, like, I think that this episode and Holiday in the Fog, which is the next one, were, like, the first two episodes written. So I can imagine them not having a very solid grasp on Nicholas's character beyond one of Sissy's followers.
It makes sense.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
you can see these first couple of episodes are where they're kind of ironing out the kinks and testing bits and kind of trying to see what works. And yeah, like it does show, but it makes for interesting moments to analyze, like canonically. Also, Nicholas looks so uncomfortable here. Like you can just imagine the scene.
He looks super shy.
Yeah, you can just imagine the scene
Yeah.
before this where he's like, "Oh, I don't know, Sissy," and she's like, "No, no, no, go on, you've got to do it." Like you can totally see it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can definitely picture them just like dragging him to the gym. and you know that Sissy and part of me thinks that genuinely she does want him to succeed and be happy with this drum thing because she knows that he's a good drummer. But also she wants to stick it to Odd and Ulrich and
Yeah.
Yumi.
Oh yeah, totally.
Like obviously. I mean, you can see the smirk on her face, and I mean Ulrich even says it, like if Sissy wanted to give us a hard time, she sure succeeded or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Like the whole point is to, you know, make the gang spend time with someone they don't want to spend time with. And by extension, I would imagine Sissy herself, who has obviously, as we will find out in episode 3, always wanted to be part of the group, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So Odd still wants Naomi, but Yumi and Ulrich actually want the band to be good, so they're considering taking on Nicholas. The three argue.
Good choice.
Truly, though, he's great. I love Nicholas. And like that drum solo was pretty dope. Not that I know much about music, but yeah. The three argue, with Odd threatening to quit the band if Nicholas gets in. Yumi threatens to leave if Nicholas doesn't get in, and the three friends are at a standstill. If Sissy's intention, like Dianna said, was to get them to argue, she's certainly done a good job of it. The tension is broken by a surprise last-minute audition. It's Jim Morales on the trombone. Oh yeah!
What a guy.
He cares so much about
I
being part of
loved
this thing.
scene.
Like, he is so invested in being in a band with high schoolers, which is funny as fuck to me.
It's so cute. It is really funny, but it's so cute. He's
yeah.
so excited. He's like, "Do you guys need a slide trombone player?" It's like, "Oh, Jim."
I mean, he doesn't really have anything better to do, does he?
I'd love to be in a band with Jim Morales. Okay, on the spot question. If you could have a band with like 3 other Caddick students or staff, who would it be?
Good question.
Okay, Nicholas for drummer, because like genuinely out of everybody that we've at least heard in the auditions, he really was the best. I don't know, maybe Odd, I guess, because he does have musical talent. I don't know if I would pick Yumi as the singer,
Yeah. Questionable vocals.
Understandable.
but like I'm thinking of who else would be a singer.
I don't know, have we...
And then I feel like I'm completely ignoring Aelita, but like her talent more so lies in like DJing than playing an instrument.
I mean, Aelita sings all the time when doing her creativity.
That's true.
Oh yeah, that's true. Okay, then Aelita could be a singer, I guess.
It's just Aelita singing that same, like, one, like, note, like, over and over, and it just becomes this, like, gospel band or something. I could get behind that, you know? I think that's pretty good vibes.
She could probably remix that, like, chanting into some pretty good, like, disco tunes.
Oh, yeah!
Or, like-
Quitter, you've got the right idea, I think. There we go. That's something for a budding fan to make a mix out of. Anyway, Jeremy uses the tunnel connected to the boiler room to head to the factory, and we get a sewer montage! Woohoo! Also, like, it's so interesting, but also it makes a lot of sense that the gang rarely uses this after season 1. This, like, boiler room entrance into the factory. But it's, like, so risky. And I think it's also...
It's super exposed.
Yeah, definitely. But it's also really cool because I think we see this later on, like, it's something that Franz uses when he's working at Caddick. And it's just like, ooh, foreshadowing. I love it.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I always love the montages of them going to the factory. I know it's probably just a pad for time, but it looks fun.
Yeah, it is cool.
I put in my notes, I will never get tired of this. So yeah, 100% agree. Jeremy arrives in the factory and connects once more with Lyoko. In the forest sector, Aelita is surrounded by ripple effects. Xana's pulsations echoing across the forest floor. Aelita tells him she was right to be worried. Xana is indeed awake, and he's activated a tower in the desert sector. Jeremy tells her to be careful. Oh my god, they're so cute. I love them. I love them.
They do have a good, like, dynamic. Also, like, Aelita or Jeremy, one of them calls it the desert region instead of the desert sector.
I like that a lot, actually. Like, I like region as opposed to sector. I don't know about you two.
I mean, sector definitely sounds more like technological, but region definitely makes it sound like
a world.
It's an ecosystem. Yeah, totally.
Definitely. What do you think, Dianna?
I don't really have a preference either way, but I realized that they only, I think, use the word region in season 1. Like beyond that, and it's interchangeable. Actually, do they even say the word sector at all in season 1?
Sure.
I don't know.
Because I'm wondering, because as we all know, they kind of like rewrote the show Bible between seasons 1 and 2. So I'm wondering if like that was one of the changes that they made.
Maybe.
I mean, it's been like such a long time since I've seen season 1 episodes. So like, I guess we'll have to keep track of how they refer to the sectors. But
like, it makes sense. I mean, given that like the season, I mean, it was pretty obviously like a side effect of, you know, getting a new animator for like the whole series. But it's pretty interesting to see how the change from region to sector like coincided with the change from the sectors, well, regions, feeling like so alive and detailed, I guess, into feeling much more technological.
Yeah, 100%.
Like especially in the desert and the forest.
The more saturated colours.
Yeah, and
sorry, Diana, etc.
No, that's okay.
I was
Go
just
ahead.
going to say the more saturated colours, etc. like that. And we're going to talk about the tonal shift between season 1 and the rest of the series. But no, I definitely think that is really interesting to see the semantics reflect the visuals, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. And it's also definitely a writing thing, too. I think that the shift from region to sector, well, region kind of does make it sound like it's more of like a world, because it is. The word sector sounds more science fiction-y because like this is like a virtual place. Like it's not like a real world place you can travel to like by normal means. Yeah.
It's interesting, for sure. On Earth, Jim finishes his impassioned trombone solo. Odd tries to gently let him down as, let's be honest, a 50-year-old dude has no place in a band of high schoolers. Anyways.
You know, I always saw him more of a, like maybe late 30s, early 40s.
How old is Jim? What do we think? Because I had him, like, solidly in the, like, 40s to 50s range, but...
I would think maybe 40s, like early to mid 40s. Although I don't know, because then, again, with the whole shift to the different writing style and just like the whole show Bible changing, we find out later in the series that he held like 50 million different jobs.
I mean, that could also be true. I know Quitter said, oh, maybe he's like 30-something, and I was like, nah, he's not 30, but I'm 30 nearly, and I've had like 12 different jobs in the last like 2 to 3 years, so it's not entirely out of the question.
Yeah, actually, that's valid, because I'm also almost 30, and I have quite a long resume of things, but like, I would peg Jim more as like in his 40s.
For sure.
Yeah, I could see like early 40s.
I just don't want to think about Jim Morales being like 30 years old because that's too personal. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's weird to me.
Understandable.
I
don't know. I just always really saw him as like an old cadet graduate that like went off, did his thing, and then when he was like down at his luck, went back to his school to
oh my god.
That's a real. I love that because
that
like,
headcanon. What the fuck? That's amazing.
Yeah. Because we don't know anything about his childhood. We only know about like all the different roles and positions that he's had like in his career of like various things. So you could really be onto something. He might have been a former CADEC student that ended up coming back. Maybe he knew Jean-Pierre for like a long time. Like maybe they went to school together and he came back and JP was like, yeah, sure, I'll give you a job here.
Oh my
you can live here. Why not?
So, you know, there's like Harry Potter Marauders era like fan fiction. Oh my god, I want like Jim and Jean-Pierre at CADEC as students fan. Oh, no, sorry. There's just, a dam has been opened of ideas. That's incredible.
I mean, speaking of, how old do you think are like Jean-Pierre and Suzanne Hertz?
I think Suzanne Hertz is probably in her 50s at least because her hair is gray.
Yeah.
probably same for JP.
I can see her as like.
I don't know
Yeah.
about JP. Probably in his like late. I would say he's probably a little bit older than Jim, but like maybe not by a whole lot. I don't
Really?
know.
I can say him like 50.
I
don't know,
see
maybe he
quite a
is.
big difference between them.
Yeah, there might be. Plus, like, well, because I'm thinking, because JP definitely does look a lot older, like both in his demeanor and like his hair is gray, but also he's had to deal with Sissy his whole life.
Yeah, that could definitely, like, between the stress of the divorce or separation and like having to, I don't want to say deal with Sissy since he's her dad.
Okay, well, he's had to like wrangle her and like, you know, kind of like be, you know, obviously father her, but also
Yeah.
he runs the whole school, so he's like the school dad.
Yeah.
Except Jim is more of the school dad.
There's like a.
Yeah, he's more like.
Oh, sorry, go on, Quitter.
No. Yeah,
I was
go
going to
on.
say there's probably like Sissy at like 9 years old, and JP has like an unlined face and like beautiful lush brown hair, and then Sissy hits puberty, and just overnight it's like grey stress lines, like.
Oh my goodness.
It just sends him spiraling.
I can imagine though. I mean, I, as established, I am a simp for Sissy Delmas, but also like do not want to hang out with her or father her.
Oh yeah.
You know.
I don't think many people would. But speaking of, I mean, we're still talking about Code Lyoko, so do you think like Jean-Pierre is a good father?
Yes. I think he is.
Yeah.
I think so. I was looking at the series Bible recently. Sorry, folks, we will get back to the recap, but I think this is on topic enough. Yeah, I was looking at the series Bible, and they kind of outlined the character profiles for like the teachers, so Jean-Pierre, Suzanne, and Jim. And one of the things that's kind of a current theme is how kind and empathic and helpful the adults are. And I really see that in the show, you know. I think JP absolutely cares about his students, and Jim does too, much as Jim is kind of a blowhard, and much as Suzanne as well is kind of like snarky at times. Like, you can definitely see how much they care about the kids. And as far as
yeah.
JP goes with Sissy, I think he obviously kind of is a little bit exasperated with her and kind of probably doesn't really know how to handle a teenage girl, which is understandable. But I think he loves her a lot, and I think he's trying his best. That's my take, but I'd love to see what you two think.
I completely agree. Oh, go ahead.
No. You go, and then I'll like try and say my 2 cents.
Okay. I completely agree with that analysis, Soul, because like he listens to what Sissy has to say, but he also sets boundaries and puts his foot down on certain things. Like if she doesn't do well on a test, there's like a whole like B plot about that in like a later season.
Yeah, in Final Mix.
Yeah. So like he both respects her, like, but obviously like he's her father, so he has to put his foot down. And I think that, you know, the reason why him and Jim can both be so like stringent about things is because like they have to lay down the law and set these rules. Like Jim is, for all intents and purposes, the dorm advisor at Caddick, trying to like keep all of these kids, because it's a co-ed school, like in line. And, you know, obviously like it's a kid's cartoon, you know, boys and girls, separate floors, whatever, but like he's trying to make sure that everybody is respectful of one another in the dorms. And like, you know, he's the gym teacher, so he has to like toe the line between like keeping these rules and boundaries, but also being like a father figure to these kids who are living at school away from their parents. And I think that JP kind of the same thing, even though I feel like we don't see as much of him as we do Jim. But I definitely feel like that he has like a lot of good fatherly, you know, instincts in him, obviously, because he is like Sissy's dad. But so does Jim, even though he's not like an actual like biological father.
I've seen a lot of fics that paint Jim as kind of a surrogate father to various local warriors or students, and I really like that. I think it's really sweet. Quitter, did you have any other thoughts on parenting, etc.?
Well, I mean, yeah, I do think like he's a good father. I mean, at the end, like Sissy may be a brat, but I do think like her father definitely like instilled in her like values that at the end of the day she will follow. Because we see even in season 1 when she's probably at her worst in the series, when the chips are down, Sissy's usually pretty helpful or worried about people. And I do think that's like a big thing in season 1, like that when the chips come down, your true self comes out. I do think true self is like a huge thing in at least season 1, actually.
I love that.
And not just because of the not just because of the Lyoko forms in the scanners, but also because for example, we in the first episode we see Nicholas as just one of Sissy's cronies, and then it turns out that he can play drums like a master, and then we see her as the other nerdy crony, and then he helps like take down one of Santa's robots. And then Jim like is a thorn in the Lyoko Warriors side throughout the entire season, and then it turns out he's just a goofy guy that can like protect his students at the cost of his life. And Sissy may be like a ginormous, well, she may be a pretty bad person, let's say that much. But like she can also be concerned about Millie and Tamiya and Herb when like they're locked in the cafeteria, and she can like take care of Ulrich when they're trapped in the elevator. And overall, I do think like season 1 does a great job of like establishing that you shouldn't like. First impressions are of course important, but people are like much more than that.
Oh, dude, that is some dope analysis, and I am definitely down to add true self versus kind of expectations and first impressions as a central theme of Code Lyoko, because yeah, that is fucking spot on. Nice. So the group checks in with Jeremy, who tells them there's a countdown happening with Xana set to store a huge amount of voltage into a pylon and release it on the nuclear power plant. The pylon can take 1 million volts, and once it's accumulated, Xana can blow everything up. We need to tell someone, says Yumi. She's got a point. Civilians are noticing, and electricity is pretty deadly. The entire region will be wiped out. There'll be an inquiry, the gang will be questioned, the authorities will discover Xana and force them to shut down the supercomputer, losing Alita in the process. I don't think that's the main issue here. Like, I think...
Yeah, Jeremy focused on the wrong part.
Yeah, Jeremy is definitely very much, like, blind to this whole situation, because all he sees is Alita, and, like, that's kind of his top priority versus, like, you know, the fate of France.
Yeah.
Jeremy just like,
this is the bathwater.
Sorry, Jeremy just being like, this is the only chance I'm ever going to have to get a girlfriend. Please, you guys, please.
Poor guy.
Honestly, like...
God, he is such a simp.
He really is. Insert, like, Ron Weasley voice here. You need to sort out your priorities, etc. Truly, though. Also, again, I went to art school and I got a B in my maths GCSE, but I feel like 1 million volts is kind of excessive.
I don't know. I mean, I'm going to med school and I dropped physics for a reason, and the reason was I hated physics. So I can't really say anything.
Yeah, I have an English and communications degree, so this is not my wheelhouse.
So basically what I'm hearing is...
any, like... we all suck at this. Like, we're the least appropriate people to talk about a show in computing and, like, virtual reality.
None of us are qualified. The podcast needs to end here. Goodbye. It was nice.
It was nice being here, everyone. So do you guys, so, oh my God, Jeremy voted against, Yumi and Ulrich voted for, like, telling the authorities.
Yeah.
Odd voted against. So I wonder why Odd, like, is against telling the authorities, because, like, I understand, yes, there would be an investigation and an inquiry and whatever, but also they have a reset button. So why couldn't they just, like, tell the authorities, you know, let them know ahead of time, go to Lyoko in the meantime, and Alita will deactivate the tower, and then, like, they'll reset time. Because, like, I don't understand the whole point of this argument. And also, Jeremy's like, it's a tie. We don't do anything. I literally have in my notes, that's not what a tie means, Jeremy. Like,
I mean, to be fair, what would they do? Like, you can't, like, what is the compromise between not telling and telling?
Getting blown up versus getting blown up.
Yeah, really.
I think, so to answer your question, are we Odd? My headcanon, Odd is also in love with Alita and doesn't want to lose her. Possibly.
Ooh.
potentially. Or like, you know, he's kind of more soft on the whole like, oh, but if we tell people, we might have to give up our secret, and I don't get to be a secret hero anymore, etc. kind of thing. Which, you know, whatever. Interesting writing choice. It's definitely manufactured drama considering the RTTP. Yeah, interesting. I don't know. I mean, I think the tension is neat because it does foreshadow how the group is split later on in various decisions. Like, this isn't the first time. This is the first time, but it's not the last time that they're going to have a group vote. So...
Right, and I like that, you know, because that is character development.
Yeah, Alita, like, really... I mean, it's the first time, like, here in Just a Bit, that we see, like, Alita have any... you know, human personality, really.
Yeah, for sure. Like, she drops in and she's like, no, I don't want thousands of people to die because of me, you know, we need to tell someone, which is very much
so she was like, don't I have the right to vote? And Jeremy was like, of course you do. That way it won't be a tie. And he has this smug look on his face.
He 100% assumes that Alita is going to vote with him. And I just find that so fun and interesting because it really speaks a lot to Jeremy's kind of assumptions about Alita that we kind of see later on as well. Like, oh, well, of course Alita's going to think this or do this or whatever. And yeah, I like that.
Right. And then we get the... we find out that Alita votes for telling the authorities because of what, you know, you had said, that she doesn't want thousands of people to die. And at this point, we as the viewer are, you know, she's an AI. Mm-hmm. She has no knowledge of humanity outside of what she's read on the internet and, like, you know, her interactions with the Lyoko warriors. So for her to just be like, don't tell the tell the authorities, you know, I don't want everybody to die. Like, I'm just here hanging out on Lyoko. That is incredibly selfless and, like, extraordinary thinking for an artificial intelligence for, like, all intents and purposes.
This is an incredible character moment for Alita. I think this speaks volumes about her.
Yeah, a huge contrast between, like, Sana's self-preservation at all cost, what with the, you know, between, like, the quadrillion attacks and all the trouble they have to get to, like, you know, all the Sector 5 shenanigans eventually, and then all the replica shenanigans eventually. Like, it's pretty obvious. Sana, like, his first priority is, well, to live. Obviously, his second priority is to kill Franz Hopper and then kill the warriors. But above all that, like, it knows that it needs to continue existing in order to do that. And then in the entire other end of the spectrum, we have Alita, who's, like, who really, like, at least, like, in the first few seasons, like, is self-sacrificial as all hell. Like, she literally turns off the supercomputer herself in, like, season 2, and you're like, I think holy shit, Alita.
It's, like, it's super, super interesting for sure, and I think one of our post-episode discussion topics in the near future is going to be, how does the series change if Alita's an AI all along and not a human? So let's put a pin in that for now, because I think we've touched on some really good ideas, but also, like, we need to get on with the rest of the episode. But yeah, 100% agree. Super, super cool.
Yeah.
So Odd and Ulrich head to the tower. I'll head to Lyoko, even. They've got to get to Lyoko before they can get to the tower. Transfer, scanner, virtualization. They land in the desert and meet up with Alita, while Jeremy shares the location of the activated tower. On Earth, it's nighttime, and Yumi heads to the school where the power is completely out. Bearded Man, Suzanne Hertz, and Jean-Pierre meet in JP's office by the flame of a single candle to discuss what's going to happen. The power is completely out, and no one knows what's going on or what to do. I love the lighting in here, by the way, and I love this scene.
I do too, but, like, also, there's no way in hell that a single candle can light an entire room like that. Like, I know it's cartoon logic.
Definitely not. Like, they need at least, like, 3 or 4.
Yeah, exactly. And also, this is the first time that we are seeing Ulrich's Lyoko form, I think, right?
I was just going to say that. It's like, what do you think about, like, Ulrich's Lyoko form? Do you like it? Do you dislike it?
I like it.
I love all the season 1 through 3 forms, though. Like, I mean, I like the...
Yeah, I think... They look slick. Like, Ulrich is, like, he definitely has a lot of personality in his season 1 through 3 Lyoko form.
Super cool. I love it.
Yeah, I think that all of their Lyoko forms definitely let their personalities shine through a lot more in the first few seasons versus, like, when Jeremy kind of goes and, like, redoes everything.
For sure.
Yeah. Like, you can definitely see, like, the difference between like their natural Lyoko forms, like being an expression of themselves, and then Jeremy attempting to keep a bit of that as self-expression, but also like trying to establish them as a more cohesive team. Because the season 4 outfits definitely, I mean, they look a lot better in the Earth animation, not gonna lie. But like they also definitely look way more, I'm not gonna say less clashing, more like they look more like part of a set.
They look more uniform.
Right, they look a little more streamlined.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, no, I basically agree with you two. The early season forms have more personality. But, it's what it is. So, the Earth scene, I just want to say, like, you know that I'm a teacher, like, in real life and have taught at a boarding school. And I just think about these poor teachers and the safeguarding, like, stress that they are going under right now. Like, it gives me such secondhand anxiety. Like, oh my God, how are they dealing with this? It's a lot. So, shout out to JP and crew for trying to handle this mess. And also this one nuclear guy who's, like, clearly just come in on a guest lecture about nuclear fission. And now he's just like, shit, like, what the heck? Why am I here? What is happening?
I didn't sign up for this.
Yeah, right. Yumi appears and tries to explain that the nuclear power plant is in danger of blowing up, but no one believes her. In the desert sector, the group come to a standstill beside an oasis. The pulsations indicate that this is the place, but the tower is nowhere to be found. Ulrich hacks and slashes into the ground, hoping to reveal something. Odd throws rocks into the water and realizes, hey, that's not an oasis at all, it's a mirage. He dives through the pool of water and lands on a platform underneath where the activated tower is waiting for them. And we never see anything this cool on Lyoko again, R.I.P.
They definitely could have done a lot more with optical illusions and all sorts of surrealist stuff that wouldn't have been possible on Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I forget too, like, obviously after going back and watching these episodes, it's a totally different vibe because Jeremy didn't have the super scan. So he wasn't really able to, like, totally pinpoint the tower, like, to its exact location, right? He only kind of knew, like, okay, it's in this region, it's kind of in this area, like, follow the pulsations.
Yeah, they're going on a kind of mishmash of Aelita's kind of affinity with Lyoko and her ability to sense and follow the pulsations, and Jeremy's prototype super scan, I guess. Yeah, I like that though. I mean, in season 1, that does a really good job of adding tension because there's always the puzzle on Lyoko of, like, where do we find the tower, what happens, etc. And obviously, as we will talk about later, as they approach more serialized storytelling and there isn't time to build that tension in that way, it becomes more like, oh, the super scan will immediately send us to where we need to go, etc.
Yeah. Like, I think season 1 especially, like, had as much emphasis on the monster fighting and the real-life sand attack as it had in, you know, discovering and exploring and finding out what the heck Lyoko is like in its appearance. And, like, in the following seasons, I mean, of course they have new stuff to explore, like season 5, which they do explore a lot, and I like that. But they pretty much lost emphasis on finding out all of Lyoko's secrets because they'd already had a full season on it, and I guess in universe the characters already knew it pretty well too. But I do still think it's a bit of a shame.
No, I agree.
Yeah, like, I like it in season 1 that they're kind of like on a hunt for the tower, because you're right, it does add more tension and it's a bit of a tonal shift compared to, like, the later seasons where they're dropped near the tower and then they have to just fight the monsters to, like, get to it, which, like, yeah, I mean, that's the same formula in season 1, but there's more fighting of the monsters and less where's the tower.
Yeah, a tonal shift is exactly it, right?
Yeah. And that's not a bad thing. Like, it's just, you know, something to point out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for, right? To just kind of analyse the show and look at the differences and so on.
Yeah.
Things can never run smoothly, so of course a crab appears and shoots Ard right in the kneecap. 3 crabs, in fact. It's an entire crustacean army. The crabs give chase.
It's time for crab.
It's a surf and turf buffet, with the crabs being the surf and the Lyoko warriors.
First time we see them, I mean, it's episode 2, but
I
still,
love the crabs.
First time we see the crabs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look cool as hell. I do wish they'd use their underside laser a bit more in the show, not gonna lie.
For sure.
Like, they only used it 2 times, but still, really cool monster, really
2
effective
times
monster.
only out of the whole series? Oh,
Yeah.
damn.
Obviously, there's the chips there's obviously like the army and chips them down. And then in Rec Room, one of them tries to shoot like Santa William with it while he's still playing out the whole, oh, I'm being chased by Santa. Oh, I'm suddenly good again. Help me, Alita. Help me.
Yeah,
But
I never realized that.
Well, I do like trying to look out for those kind of
For
things.
sure.
Well, I'm glad you're here to do
Me
it.
too, because Lord knows I don't have the time or the attention span. The crabs give chase, and Odd sacrifices himself to save Alita from a laser. He reappears in the scanner room, and Ulrich's alone on Lyoko. Not for long, his triplicate ability allows him to split into 3 bodies, 1 for each crab. Thank you for saving Alita, Jeremy tells Odd. Oh my god, I love them both. I love this relationship. I love this friendship. They're so cute.
I do too. And is this the first time that we see a devirtualization like on screen?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because like in the last episode, Odd was the only one to go to Lyoko, but like he wasn't devirtualized like on screen. I'm assuming Jeremy probably brought him in once Alita deactivated the tower. But we didn't see that as the viewer. So like it's interesting to note that, you know, if you're watching this show for the first time, this is your first experience with seeing what happens with a devirtualization.
Yeah, they don't say it by name, like they don't call it devirtualization, but I mean, judging by virtualization, one could probably guess
It's pretty,
it.
you can make
But,
that
yeah,
logical
I mean,
leap. And if you're watching this, you're clearly a scientist or a theoretical physicist, so obviously you would, right?
Oh yeah, totally. Every single kid that watched Code Lyoko when they were 5 is now working in a nuclear plant.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yumi is having a hard time trying to convince the police on Earth. On Lyoko, Ulrich times 3 becomes Ulrich times 2, as the fight eventually whittles down to Ulrich and the last remaining crab. Ulrich takes a shot to the shoulder, and the pylon is at 98%. But with a flying leap, he stabs the crab in its weak spot, and the fight is won. Alita heads to the tower, more quickly than last episode. Thank fuck! Alita, you've learned something.
Thankfully.
Cut your mass...
Also, like,
Oh, sorry, go on.
No, I was just like thinking that like for a season 1 fight, Ulrich soloing 3 crabs is pretty good.
Right, like, considering 5 Cankrolats were like, oh my god, no, there's Cankrolats, like, last episode, this is pretty impressive.
I know.
Yeah. Like, sometimes
it
in
really
season
is.
1, the Lyoko Warriors struggle with tiny threats that, like, you watch the following seasons, so you're like, oh my god, they had trouble with, like, 3 Cankrolats. Yuni was devirtualized because she stood still and let a Cancrolat shoot her, like, 4 times. And now she's doing the craziest flips and, like, one-shotting tarantulas or whatever.
Tonal shift, you guys, tonal shift. That's not tonal shift.
Also, going back to when she was talking to the police, because she had called Jeremy and told him that the principal and the engineer didn't believe her, and so she was going to go talk to the police instead. So going back to that, she, we hear like the end of her, or the beginning of her explanation rather, of to like, hey, I know what's going on, and the officer is like, and how do you know that? And she just like glares and makes a fist.
Pissed.
So dumb.
And I'm like, shit's about to go down when you see Yumi curl her hand into a fist.
I always saw her more, I always saw the people she was talking to more as like firefighters than police.
I thought they were French
you're
police,
probably right.
and it was like a military police that they kind of specifically brought in, but I could be completely wrong.
I don't know.
I mean genuinely, I have no idea, but like regardless, she was talking to some sort of authoritative figure that had something to do with.
No, I do agree. Like, it's hilarious how they're like, okay, so you're just telling us this random crazy shit. How do you know this? And she's like, fuck.
You can't tell them the secret, even though that's exactly what I came here to do.
And they didn't believe her either, because she called Jeremy again, and she was like, nobody is believing anything I'm saying. And it's like, well, Yumi, you're a 14-year-old girl. Why would they believe you?
Yeah, exactly. Dianna, you know what they say, seeing is believing.
That's
really.
the title of the episode!
Hey, you said this thing.
Oh my god, that actually makes sense. I did, genuinely, I'm not even being facetious here. I did always wonder why it was called that, but oh my god, no, that is exactly why. fuck? Well,
yeah, you made a really good point. Like, nobody believes it until they show them the factory. And it's like, well, why would they have any cause to believe a single word that's coming out of your mouth without, like, seeing actual proof of it?
Especially since it is incredibly fantastical. It's, you know...
Yeah, it's really far-fetched.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
I mean, it is out of the... It sounds like it's out of the TV show.
Exactly.
Maybe because it is, but...
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if someone came and told me that
think-
this was the thing that was happening, I would believe them, but that's because I've watched Code Lyoko and I'm a fan of it, you know what I mean? But, like, yeah.
Totally.
Anyways, where are we up to in the... So, cut dramatically between Lyoko and Earth as the countdown, counts down, and Alita floats slowly up to the tower platform. Electricity crackles, Odd and Jeremy gasp. Alita enters the Code Lyoko. That's it, that's the name of the show, you guys. And the bolts of electricity are halted mere meters from the nuclear power plant. Just in time. That was a close one. It's time to return to the past. White light engulfs the world, transporting our heroes back in time. There's a bit of a scene skip here, actually. We have to fill a few gaps in ourselves because we immediately cut to the band performing on stage. So we obviously missed the bit where it's like, hey, Nick, you can join our band, etc., etc. But yeah, we see the Poprock Progressives featuring Nicholas and Jim Morales, woohoo, on stage, pop rocking their hearts out. Yumi on vocals sings a song that's especially reminiscent of their mysterious AI friend Alita, a mystery girl from a mystery world.
I love that. I love that the song is about Alita. I love it.
It is really cute. It's a nice homage to, their friend.
I also know it's not explicit intentional foreshadowing because Alita was probably still intended to be an AI at this point, but I do like that it is also foreshadowing, And like Alita eventually comes to Earth and she finds an affinity for music herself later on, and it kind of comes full circle, I really like that. I think it's really sweet.
Not exactly
and Jim
the best
does a really good job on the trombone too. So, Yumi's singing. I can do without Yumi's singing voice.
The voice is one thing, but like the lyrics, it's pretty obvious they're like teens.
She might not be the best singer, but she's the most badass and competent on Lyoko and on Earth often. So
right, there's an attempt that was made. Also, so going back to kind of like tie this together, the auditions. When Jim shows up with his trombone, he's literally like, because they all have to go, because Yumi gets the phone call about the Xana attack. So he's literally like, oh no, you're not leaving until you let me audition. And I'm thinking, and I have this in my notes, like, Jim, do you genuinely think that you're going to be able to hold them there?
Right? Like, what was he thinking?
Like, what do you think you're going to do?
Just blocking the door, like, with his, like, massive broad body. Like, no! Please, Jim, the world is at stake! Sissy, Herb, and Jeremy watch the band play. Sissy's clearly upset at the band's success, which, like, she's a shit friend, isn't she? Just saying.
Yeah, really.
As Yumi sings and the band plays, Jeremy sits in the audience cheering. He delivers one of the most iconic lines of the series. You guys are super nuclear. You're going to make this town explode.
Oh
It's funny because they almost died from nuclear fallout, you guys.
Hilarious.
We love that.
We love to see it. But Dianna, you tweeted this from the podcast Twitter, but this is one of the only times we see Jeremy relaxing and having fun. And like, I hadn't even thought about that. And it was like, oh, my heart, my poor heart. Like, it's so true.
He's just vibing with the little container of popcorn, like
honestly,
munching on it.
For him.
Yeah, and I'm like, first off, where did you get that? Like, now I want some. And secondly, like, it was so cute because, like, and Herf was having a really good time too until Sissy shot him a death glare, and he was like, oh no, I better look like I'm not having fun.
Right? That bit was fun too. But yeah, no, I really like it. I like that they obviously kind of reflected at some point on their decisions around the band and used the return to the past to do something more positive this time that wasn't just getting one over on Sissy or some kind of like pettiness or whatever, or like for their own gain. It was like, okay, actually, like, this is a pretty decent neutral thing to do.
Maybe it was that near-death experience that kind of like brought them down to earth and made the right decision. Who knows?
Humbling experience for sure. Quitter, do you have any ouchies for us?
Well, I mean, none of them really get hurt. Like, the only near death is that everyone except Ulrich and Aelita get blown up in a nuclear explosion, and I don't think I need to say why that would be lethal.
You know what? I'm sorry. Literally just now, I've had the idea for a canon Divergence AU fic where the entire world gets obliterated by this nuclear fallout, but Ulrich and Aelita are the only ones left and they're on Lyoko. And they just have to live on Lyoko now because the world is dead.
But
I mean,
Jeremy is so far underground.
That is true. Do you think he'd survive?
I don't know. I would like to think so because, like, let's take a look at this for a second, like the makeup of the lab itself. It looks like that the walls and the flooring of the lab, the scanner room, and the supercomputer room are all, like, metal or something. Because, like, when you hear them walk across the floor, it's like a metal sound, kind of.
Yeah.
There's a secure mechanism between the lab and the elevator, or like I guess the elevator shaft in like any of those three rooms. And then there's the ladder that they use occasionally that connects like all of those three rooms together. So I would like to think that maybe France designed the space as like a sort of like panic room or like fallout place, because not only would he be like underground, you know, fine, whatever, like from disaster up above, but he can just like yeet himself into Lyoko if things got really bad.
Yeet himself into Lyoko is such an
Yeah.
incredible phrasing. But anyways, sorry.
It
yes.
is true.
No, actually, that's a really good point. And obviously, it was paramount to Franz's work that the factory be impenetrable to an extent, or at least highly secure. So yeah, I can see that as the wall functioning as some kind of nuclear bunker.
Yeah, and we see Jeremy several times enter like an access code to even get into the lab. So, I mean, it's super, you would think it's super secure. So the only, like, in my brain at least, the only people who would have died were like, at least from the Lyoko Warriors, would have been Yumi.
Fair enough.
Damn.
I mean, yeah. I was gonna like say that Odd and Jeremy would have probably like starved or, you know, died of dehydration.
Yes,
but
that's
they could
true.
have just virtualized themselves into Lyoko too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, definitely. Again, a topic for kind of another week when we talk about the applications of the supercomputer, but as a potential for cryogenics and kind of freezing yourself in time in order to kind of avoid whatever disasters are happening in the real world, or whatever disasters are happening like within your body. So you got a fatal illness that you wanted to stave off and you could virtualize yourself. Just absolutely fascinating. I love it.
Lots of possibilities.
Yeah.
But damn.
Do any of you guys have any like trivia? Otherwise, I can like pull some out. I've got like that I got straight from Code the Ogre France. Bless that website.
Oh God, we love
It's my
that.
life.
We love that site. Yeah, no, go for it. Hit us with some trivia.
All right. So, I mean, as we all know, it's the first time we see the crabs. It's the first time we see Ulrich in the desert. It's the first mention of Santa's pulsations, which I did notice. Like in Teddy Godzilla, there was like no mention
It was
of the
kind of
pulsations.
implied. You know, there was but they were not given a name at this point.
No, yeah. And the first episode in which Jeremy goes alone to the factory, which happens pretty often, and the only episode in which Ulrich doesn't say triplicate when he activates his triplicate power.
Huh.
And of course, like I did notice this one myself, and then looked it up in the wiki. Just before Jeremy's computer in his room turns off, like there's the oh so famous blue screen of death.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Good spot. Nice.
Yeah, I didn't notice that either.
Shout out to the
And of
wiki for
course-
keeping us straight as well.
Oh yeah. Odd and Sissy have new VAs. Good for them.
For sure. So yeah, ouchies are still pretty low stakes at the minute. Trivia's interesting, definitely. A lot of firsts, obviously, because it's pretty early in the series. From the outsider POV, I guess the gang accepts Nicholas and Jim into their band without any kind of confrontation or a second thought, which probably seems pretty weird to the people who haven't been influenced by the Return to the Past. Must be like, oh, wow. Also, this is a slight tangent, I apologise, but as far as kind of Sissy and her hopes for being friends with the Lyoko Warriors goes, they really give her mixed messages, especially due to the intel that they have from the return trip in time. Like, if she comes up and she's like, Nick wants to be part of your band, and they're just like, hey, sure, sissy, why not? You know, like, of course she thinks that they might want to be friends with her because she has no other context.
That's
True.
a really good point. I said this last night on Discord, I think. They really did Sissy dirty throughout this whole series. Like, not just the Warriors, but, like, the writers. Like, everybody screwed her over. Because, like, any sort of minor character development that she gets, like, anytime she's not a complete bitch, is completely eradicated with the return to the past.
Yeah.
And like you said, Sol, and we'll talk about this more in the next episode, but all she wants is to be their friend. But also she's going about it in a really terrible way.
Yeah.
We need to do a...
Definitely, like... No, I was just thinking, she's like the sort of person to go, if I can't be part of their group, I might as well destroy the group.
100%. Yeah.
Right. Yes, and it's like, sissy, honey, that's not how you make friends.
Baby, I just want to take her aside and just kind of tell her, but obviously, you know, I can't. She's stuck in 2003, and here I am across several different...
Here we are 20 years later.
Oh, man. Yeah, she's... I've kind of been keeping track of her behaviour through the kind of Dungeons & Dragons alignment chart, and I'm not really sure where to place her. I think she's kind of chaotic neutral these first 2 episods. I don't know if you would agree.
Yeah.
Like, definitely let us know. Tweet us or email us.
I definitely wouldn't call her evil.
Yeah.
No.
She's, like, chaotic in some fashion, right?
Yeah, she doesn't care about rules. Her first priority is herself. And, like, she will, like, do pretty much anything in order to get what she wants.
Yeah.
So I would definitely, like, see her as chaotic neutral.
For sure.
Yeah, I completely agree.
We're going to keep an eye on that because she does change a lot through the series, as Dianna said. Basically, according to the writers.
Yeah,
or
it
the
really
plot.
depends on the writer.
Yeah, it really does depend. But I do want to keep track of the alignment chart as far as Sissy Dalmas goes and kind of see where she goes. She definitely has a lot of chaotic good in her, and kind of tends to shift a bit, and I think it's interesting. Any final thoughts on the episode? Should we give some episode ratings?
All
Yeah,
right.
Dianna, let's go first. Go on.
I would probably rate this episode like a 4. I thought that it was really good. I liked the Lyoko scenes. I thought that, the stakes were very high, but, like, not a ton happened on Earth because it was kind of like a weird attack. You know, it's not like they were dealing with a monster or with, like, you know, a possessed person or anything. They were dealing with, like, something that was completely, like, I mean, every attack is out of their control, but they were dealing with something that was, like, so completely out of their control. So I just feel like that if there could have been, like, something else maybe to add to the Earth scenes, or maybe even if we had seen a little bit more of the confrontation that Yumi was dealing with when she was trying to tell the authorities what was going on, then that might have bumped up my rating a little bit. But, like, overall, I thought it was a really good episode.
Sweet. Quitter, what about you?
Me, I mean, I don't think I dislike, like, any episodes of Code Lyoko except for maybe, like, Caddick Bombshell, but
we're not going to talk about Caddick Bombshell until we get there.
But I mean, this definitely very high stakes. Definitely very different from the previous episode. Like, we do learn quite a few new things about the Lyoko Warriors in this one, as we did in the previous one, and we will learn in the next one. I wouldn't call it. It's not bad. Definitely not bad. I wouldn't call it, like, amazing either. I guess it's just, like, average to good.
Have you got a
so that's like
number rating?
A 3? 3 out of 5? 3.5 out of 5?
Okay, cool. I think I'm going to agree with I'm going to say a 3 out of 5. When I saw this episode title come up, I was like, I can never remember what this one is about. And I always remember it as, like, the one where they form a band. But, like, it's pretty unmemorable as far as the Xana attack goes, as far as kind of...
Yeah.
There's some good character moments in it, as there are in season 1 in general. But yeah, I do struggle to... This one doesn't really stick out in my mind, you know? It's fine. It's totally fine. It's got some good bits, like, I like it well enough, but it's not super exciting. So a solid, like, middle 3 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, it does its job.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Soul. I can never remember this episode. I got this one and Big Bug confused, or Bad Bug.
I mean, Big Bug, yeah. They're pretty much the same thing. Something's going to blow up and, like, destroy Paris, so we better stop it.
Right. It's just that one of them is a nuclear power plant and the other one is 2 trains.
Wild. Shall we move on to our discussion topic for this week? Okay,
right, yeah.
So... bear with me, guys. I'm going to give it a little bit of exposition here. So, last week we talked about the central themes of Code Lyoko, and this time I'd like to ask you two your thoughts on the Monster of the Week format and how that applies to CL. So, for those listening at home, I'd like to briefly explain what I mean by Monster of the Week. In Series 1, the setup is very formulaic. The kids have a problem at school or at home, Xana attacks, the kids save the day on Lyoko and use the return to the past to fix their problem on Earth, having learned some kind of lesson along the way. Each episode is self-contained and doesn't require you to have seen the episodes before it. It very much exists in a bubble where you can kind of just watch it and dip in and out of the series and not really need any prior knowledge. In Season 2 onwards, there's still an element of that, obviously, but there's an overarching storyline to do with Alita's backstory, the rising stakes of fighting Xana, etc., and it's widely considered, as we've already mentioned on the podcast so far, a significant tonal shift from Series 1. Whether that's for better or worse, or just different, is something that I think people still largely disagree on. So, I suppose my question for you two is, does Code Lyoko work best with a Monster of the Week format or serialized storytelling? Discuss!
Oh boy.
This is hard because this is good because this is going to spur a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
But it's hard to choose just one because they both have pros and cons.
Yeah, I choose a mixture of the two, totally.
Right. I would too. Like for example, I mean, I mentioned last episode that like I got into the series partway through season 1 was when I had first seen an episode of Code Lyoko. It was Image Problem, and it was near the end of the episode. So like I genuinely had no idea what was going on because it was like near the end of the episode. So I think that it definitely works well, like you said, Soul, for new viewers who might not have seen the show or maybe have heard of it and wanted to like get into it or whatever. That the Monster of the Week format that's more like episodic works well versus the one that's serialized and has an overarching point or an overarching like plot. But there are also, you know, cons to that because sometimes the Monster of the Week format can get kind of stale. And Ulrich kind of like lampshades this in Routine. I don't know if lampshading is the right like word for it, but he mentions it in Routine where like, you know, he's sick of the routine. And versus like in later seasons, it's very much like a story that you have to follow from the very beginning. And like if you're a new viewer, you kind of have to start from the beginning. Not even of the series, I guess. You could start from the beginning of season 2 because there's enough exposition there. To get your bearings and figure out like what the overall point is of the series and what they're trying to achieve. So I definitely think, like, I guess I said, circling back around, that there are pros and cons to both. I like both for different reasons. I think that they both work well for different reasons, but if I really had to choose one or the other, I would probably choose the serialized format over the Monster of the Week because I like the buildup of suspense, the like more in depth that we get into this overall story that they're trying to tell. Not only with Alita's background and all of these things that we later find out about her, but with the whole Xana thing and how he gets stronger as the episodes go by, and it's reflected more in the attacks that he is bringing to Earth, and in what they discover on their replica missions.
Yeah. I do agree. I mean, if I had to pick one of them, I definitely choose like focusing on plot more than the monster of the week. But at the same time, like a show definitely needs those moments of downtime.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yes,
we can't be focused on the plot all the time because otherwise people will get fatigued. Like they'll say, okay, I'm getting a bit lost. I need some time to, figure everything out in my mind and like have a bit of a break. And I do think like those filler episodes with the monster of the week attacks are a great place for that, and they're also a great place to focus more on the characters instead of the overarching plot itself.
That is exactly it, and I'm really surprised, I guess, that you two chose the serialized. I mean, I wasn't really expecting you to pick one or two. I thought the answer would be somewhere in the middle of like, well, they both work differently for like different reasons, as Dianna said.
I definitely go with both.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely would go with both too, but if I really had to choose one, I would probably choose the serialized
That's
format.
totally fair. I think so basically what I wrote in my notes was like, if CL had just been 4 seasons of Monster of the Week, I don't think I would have had any complaints. I mean, maybe I would. I don't know, like, until I find a way to visit the parallel universe where that version of Code Lyoko exists, I'm just going to have to speculate. But yeah, it's interesting to me because season 1's my favourite, but there's so much from later seasons that I absolutely love. Like, I love particular episodes. I love the Skipper Zoa. I love the William possession arc. I love Jeremy's clone. I love Hiroki. I love, like, the Franz Hopper backstory. But I do think that some of the run-of-the-mill Monster of the Week episodes are the strongest, and I think they're the most fondly remembered because they have some of the best character moments. And the characters ultimately are what make the show, you know? I actually think Seeing as Believing, even though it's not a memorable episode, is a pretty solid example of character moments because, as I said earlier, even though I couldn't actually remember the Xano attack, I did remember the wholesome scenes of the gang playing in a band together. And, like, that is one of the things that I'm like, oh, they used to play music and they all like music and this is the thing they bond over, is a thing that kind of informs a lot of my, like, headcanons, I guess, of the gang bonding. I don't know. There's something that's about that very simple, generic format that provides such a solid framework for everything else within it. So the writers don't need to worry about the story structure. It's already sorted. Like, it frees them up to focus on the characters and their interpersonal relationships. So you've got the monster or the supercomputer problem, which is like either can be literal or metaphorical. So, like, you know, you've got the body swap episode, A Fine Mess, which is a physical representation of Yumi and Odd's cultural differences, which further drives that character building. I can't wait to get to that episode. But yeah, we get to learn something new about the characters. It's allowed to stay central focus because we're not tied up in complicated plot development. We already know what's going to happen. There's going to be a problem on Earth. There's going to be a problem on Lyoko. The gang are going to fix it. They're going to go back in time. You know what I mean? Like, it just kind of like, we know what's going to happen. And within that, we are allowed to look at the characters themselves and the problems that they have and the interactions that they have together. Which is also why I like Teddy Godzilla, because there's no expectation of some big narrative explanation. It's just this completely just like fucking bizarre creative concept that's fitted into this simple narrative structure, and it lets us see this new world that we're thrown into through a really interesting perspective. But no, I think it's really cool that you guys are ever so slightly more inclined towards serialized storytelling.
Well, so one thing I actually thought of as you were saying that too is that the one another thing that makes season 1 so different is that the overarching plot of I need to materialize Aelita and bring her to Earth is such a background thing, unless it's like completely relevant to the story. There are a few episodes where it is very relevant to like the story. Like there's a one, I can't remember which one. I think it's Cruel Dilemma.
Where Odd's candy accidentally types in the code, right?
Yes, he accidentally, Odd drops candy on the keyboard. You know, it accidentally creates the materialization code. Jeremy has no idea how he did it, can't replicate it, and then shenanigans happen where Jeremy is faced with a cruel dilemma. And then it comes up again as being more relevant, the materialization, obviously in Code Earth and False Start, which is like the season 1 finale 2-parter. But other than that, it's just kind of like mentioned like offhandedly, and it does come up a lot in conversations that we see with Jeremy and Aelita specifically, and it's kind of like a point of friction for them because Jeremy is so frustrated that he can't figure it out, but it's not like a main focus of the episodes in season 1, which I think I do kind of like, because it's not like all of this like overarching plot thing shoved in our face 24/7, like we need to materialize Aelita. It's more like, this is what's happening right now, this is what the attack is, this is what we have to do to deactivate the tower. Also, we're still working in the background on materializing Aelita.
Yeah.
And I think like serialized storytelling and Monster of the Week can work in tandem, as we've looked at with Code Lyoko, really,
Yes.
because it's like, you know, you get this, it's hinted at in the background now and then suddenly it's like, oh, I've finalized the materialization program, this plot point is now happening, kind of thing, you know? So yeah, like the two do kind of work together. Yeah, I think it's just really interesting to see. We also asked on Twitter whether people had a favourite episode of Code Lyoko, and at least one person mentioned Revelation as their favourite episode, which, like, is a super, super good episode. Obviously, for its episode title, Revelation at the end, is full of dramatic stakes. It's incredibly emotional. It turns the world on its head. And it is such a plot twist, and it's, like, it's completely awesome. And again, that is a culmination of serialized storytelling, you know? That is part of the arc. And it has a great payoff, and obviously it is like multiple people's favorite episode for a reason, because it's important. It changes the world as we know it. It turns the canon completely on its head. It's it's really, really cool. So no, I totally agree that both have their place, basically.
Yes, yeah, they both do. And Revelation was a couple of people's favorite episodes. The one that came up the most often that I noticed, at least in terms of being most memorable, is Ghost Channel.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I cannot wait to get to that episode on the podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't either. That definitely seems to be a fandom favorite, at least among a lot of people. Not even if they like it. It just seems to be like the one that everybody remembers.
It is definitely one of the most memorable. Yeah, totally. Especially since it's so different to the rest of season 1.
It is. And we talk about tonal differences a lot, but like, I would love to interview one of the writers of that episode and kind of understand their thought process, because I don't know, it just, to use like kind of a really mimetic phrase, it just hits different to the rest of the series. Even series 1. But it really does. It hits different.
Especially for a season 1 episode.
Yeah.
Right?
It hits some like intrigue that we never really feel again.
Basically, like, I want like a full feature-length 90-minute movie of Ghost Channel's concept. Like, I think if there ever was a reboot of Code Lyoko, that would be what I wanted.
Fair enough.
That would be amazing. And they already have fantastic source material to pull from.
Any other thoughts on Monster of the Week format versus serialized storytelling?
I don't think so.
No, but I'm interested to hear what our listeners are going to have to say about it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah, sure.
Lots of different opinions in there.
If you want to know, if you want your opinion on anything, basically, related to Code Lyoko, of course, aired on the podcast, shoot us an email at apodcastwithoutdanger@gmail.com. You can also tweet us, which is a little less focused, but, you know, whatever. We still want to hear from you in any way. Contact us. We need human contact in order to thrive, so please send it our way.
Speaking of, we haven't read out what we've been emailed.
We have an email! I know, I'm so excited. Shall we read it? Can someone also check if we don't have any other emails in the meantime? Because I did put a call out on the Discord server. Someone to check for me?
I opened the email this morning and we hadn't gotten anything new yet, other than just like generic things from platforms that I've signed up for.
Cool. In that case, I'm gonna go right ahead and email our.
Oh, actually, we do have a new email.
Oh my god, that's so exciting. Okay, I'm gonna read out our first one first, if that's okay, Diana. And then I'll let you read out the second one. So our first email ever on the podcast, congratulations, and also thank you so much. This is from Connor, who says, on as to why the teddy bear went after Sissy and then Jim first, rather than the Warriors or the Factory, my headcanon is that it was Millie's hatred. It was somehow residing in the bear, and so when Xana sent a spectre to control it, the spectres felt an urge to get revenge on those that dared to be mean to its best friend. Also, with Xana, though canonically referred to as he, him, I go with they, them, since they are talking about a computer program that likely has no personal concept of gender identity. Last, I give the episode a 2 out of 5. While it did keep things simple as an introduction, the teddy bear plot was too weird, even by season 1 logic. You know what, Connor, you've got a point. You're not wrong. I love it, but I'm also very sentimental, so yeah. Okay, so personally, definitely agree on gender-neutral pronouns for Xana. I also do that, you may have noticed. Yeah, it seemed weird to me that they characterize it as he, him, and I also really am open to female interpretations of Xana. I've seen that in fanfic. I think that adds a different twist to the story, and I think that's really cool. I'm also not really... I hadn't really thought about Xana channeling itself through hatred, but I think that's a really cool idea. I think when we talk about Xana's motivations more, we can discuss its ability to latch onto human emotions and what that might mean. I don't know, I think this is really cool. What do you guys think?
I think that is really cool. I definitely agree with you. I'm sorry. I was just
no, sorry. It's okay.
Mentally preparing myself.
No, you're all good. You're all good.
Yeah, I really think that is a very sorry. I'm looking at this email again. The second one is incredibly long.
No, it's okay. Quitter, do you want to go ahead with your thoughts on Xana channeling hatred? Give Dianna a second.
No, I mean, it definitely makes sense. Like, it's... I'm really trying to, like, put my thoughts together on this, but I definitely have thoughts. I mean, like, I could definitely see Xana, like... It's seen Millie, like, well, hate Sissy, definitely. And it's seen her, like, hate Jim, too. So, I can definitely see Xana, like, trying to explore... First off, why was Millie mad, and what does anger do? And second, to see like what her reaction would be to know Jim and Sissy like being attacked by Xana in exchange. Would she be sad? Would she be happy? Would she be she is happy in the end because they weren't really hurt, but I could definitely see like all of these, some of these beginning plots as Xana exploring human emotion, which it's shown time and time again, it doesn't get a good grip on until like season 2.
Definitely. I find that so interesting, especially because it's like, it gives this weird, I don't know, one-sided, but also like, I don't know, parallel between like Xana and Millie, and maybe, I mean, Xana obviously kind of already had hatred in its, like, quote-unquote programming already, because obviously it's out to get to the Lyoko warriors, but I don't know, it's really cool that it's like, ooh, this is a person I can relate to, even though Millie's just a bratty kid, and obviously isn't hatred, it's just, like, teenage angst or whatever, but it's like, oh, this is a person who, like, feels what I'm feeling, I'm gonna latch onto them, and I'm gonna explore this weird affinity that I feel like I have with them. I don't know, it's interesting. I don't know, if fanfic writers out there want to go with this and write some kind of like Xana Millie like possession fic, that would be so cool. I'm here for it.
Speaking of like hatred, when do you think Xana first started to like actually truly loathe the Lyoko warriors and especially Jeremy? Like when was the shift between these are priority targets because they're the only ones that can stop me, therefore they must be eliminated, to I hate them, I want to kill them, they have to suffer, and that's my sole objective. Who cares about the rest of the world?
Oh my god, that is such a good question, and you put me on the spot here.
That's a really good question.
I have not even like thought about pinning that down to a particular point in the timeline. Oh my god, though. I mean, it's got to be somewhere through season 1, right? Like, it's really got to, because it's, I don't know, I mean, obviously it gets more and more personal, culminating in Code Earth and False Start, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm definitely kind of trying to scramble to put the episodes in order in my brain, and I can't think of one where it specifically picks on someone. Maybe Image Problem. It starts to pick on Yumi, and it starts to isolate her as like a leader of the group or like one of the most fierce warriors, and it decides it wants to take her out. And maybe that's where it begins. I don't know. Question mark. What do you think, Quitter?
Yeah, I could definitely see like Image Problem as like and like the following Pick on Yumi week episodes.
Pick on Yumi week.
But yeah, like I could definitely see it as like it's still like trying to rationalize it as Yumi is an isolated target. She lives far away from everyone else who knows about the secret, and therefore she is the easiest one to attack, especially since she's also the most reluctant to fight against Sana in the first place. But like I could also definitely see like the beginnings of like the emotion it will later recognize as frustration that Yumi especially is so effective both on Earth and Lyoko, and it's foiling its plans over and over. But I personally would say like the time it first like actually knows like pure and utter like hatred towards somebody, it's in Ghost Channel towards Jeremy. Because like
I was gonna say that exact same thing.
I scrapped my idea. That makes so much more sense.
That's like the first like decisive defeat. Like it's not just barely stopping Sana in time. It's actually like Sana thinks it's won. Sana thinks, I've perfectly manipulated all these idiots that like they thought they could dare stand up against me, and then Jeremy like proves Sana wrong, and I think that's like very vital.
Jeremy stops Xana with the power of love.
Oh, I fucking love it. It's so romantic, you guys. I love Jolita. Oh, sorry, I'm having a lot of feelings. I'll stop.
Well, not only like romantic love for Aelita, but
like,
also platonic love for the rest of them. Because like, so Ghost Channel, and like obviously we're going to talk about it when we get to the episode, but it does a really great job of picking on Jeremy because he's isolated at the school. Xana probably, even though, it's an AI, feels like, okay, well, this kid's isolated. Everybody's going to question him as to where the others are because they're constantly in a group. Jeremy is also the main person who runs the supercomputer. Nobody else knows how to run the supercomputer except for Aelita. And then later everybody else learns, but that's a different topic. So I feel like that Xana probably, is under the impression that Jeremy is an easier target as well as Yumi because Jeremy, once he gets Jeremy out of the way, then there's like nothing stopping him from like causing destruction on Earth. And Jeremy is a little bit more immune to Xana because he is not fighting on Lyoko. He's sitting in the computer
He's
chair.
more detached.
He's always on Earth. Right.
For sure. No, I think not to like kind of go on about love, etc., but I do think that this Ghost Channel really underpins the theme of love. Definitely. Platonic and romantic. Absolutely, as you said, it's all about like Jeremy kind of and his friends and his connection to them and what they mean to him and how he kind of breaks through that and like breaks through his isolation to save the day, basically. Yeah, no, absolutely, I agree. So I love the whole analysis. I don't have much else to add.
All right, the second
that's
email?
totally fine.
Dianna, do you want to read our next email?
Yeah, it's very long. So
no, go for it. I'm excited. I want to hear it. Go for it.
So this is from Mary, our friend in the Discord server. And she did say at the end that we could ignore her rambling, but I'm just going to read the whole thing if you guys are okay with that.
Absolutely. I'm waiting.
It's
I want to
really
hear.
interesting. Like it's a really good insight. I never actually thought about it, but it makes so much sense.
Okay, so hello. Very excited to vicariously live through CL again with all of you. I thought Soul's thoughts on love and loneliness in the show were absolutely phenomenal. Please excuse my quick word vomit on some thoughts. I apologize if I stumble over some words here, but I'm going to do my best. Teddy Godzilla is such a pilot. I think the most interesting aspect is the very human nature of the Xana attack, where he's clearly responding to Millie's distress, her desire to be big by making her teddy bear bigger, attacking Sissy and Jim, who both belittled her, And yet Millie completely disappears from the episode after Odd tells her he'll look for her teddy bear. There's no resolution to her emotional arc or moments where she realizes what she might have wrought.
Yeah.
Oh
Totally.
my god, I hadn't even
Right.
thought about that. This is why I want to hear other people's thoughts, because everyone has a new perspective, right?
Like, before the return to the past, between, like, the odd scene and the return to the past, the only time we see Millie is when, like, Yumi's outside, and obviously with Millie and Tamiya, who, like, been evacuated from the dorms, since that's where Yumi went. And, like, they're just standing there looking shocked. Like, Millie doesn't say anything, like,
right,
oh my
there's
god,
no
is
lines.
that my teddy bear? Or, like, I do think it'd be, like, it's a missed opportunity, definitely.
100%.
Right, and that's what Mary continues here in the email. She doesn't see the teddy bear. We don't even see her being sad she's missing out on the dance or anything. She's just used as a bookend for Ulrich to be a better person, but frankly, I don't think Ulrich was that cruel in turning her down at all. And this was also a discussion that happened, I think, like last night, this morning in the podcast Discord, was about Ulrich's turn down of her proposal to go to the dance at the beginning of the episode. Anyway, back to the email. It's a really interesting personal angle that's practically never seen again. I'm curious how much of that idea, Xena preying on some classmate's issue, that was planned and scrapped. Of course, it would be prudent to point out that Thomas Ostruck of Miraculous Ladybug fame was a storyteller on storyboarder on Teddy Gozilla, which does follow that formula to a T.
Yeah, I never made that
If you don't want to include my ramble... Sorry?
No, sorry. I thought, like, you'd stop there, but, like, I never actually, like, made that connection before, but it makes so much sense that, like, the whole classmate having an issue, so Sana / Purple Moth or Black Moth or whatever that show's villain is called, like, preying on it. Like, it is Miraculous Ladybug to a T.
Yeah, and you'll find out, I mean, I've only seen a few episodes of Miraculous Ladybug, but I know the gist of it, that it's very similar in tone and in structure, kind of, to Code Lyoko. Like, there's a big bad. There are people who transform into superheroes. There's even, at one point, a USB drive that kind of has, like, the Xena symbol on it as, like, a nod to Code Lyoko. Yeah, it's a popular image. Well, I'll post about it on the Twitter so the viewers know what we're talking about if nobody has seen Miraculous Ladybug. But Mary has a question for us in the email. It says, I have a question for you guys. Do you think the airing order is the order the episodes were made in? What about dubbed in? Because I thought it was super interesting the mountain doesn't show up until episode 15. There's also things with when Christoph Calabero voices Odd, and when Christine Flowers voices Sissy, which we talked about a little bit. The emotional arcs of characters in season 1 is very inconsistent, and I'm super curious if there's a quote-unquote better order to follow them. Oh, also, you were wondering in the podcast if the RTTP is visible. In the prequel, Jim definitely flinches away when the light of the RTTP is going off.
I've literally gasped.
Not sure about
Did
other
I
ones.
didn't even notice that. Fuck. What? Oh my god. I'm
like
sorry, I'm having a
the
moment here,
prequel.
you guys. Like, fuck. Really?
I mean, the prequel
I never realized that either.
The prequel was made in, like, season 3. I do wonder if there's, like, more evidence in, like, season 1. I still do think that they do see it.
I think they
like,
must.
Even then.
I 100%
I
believe
really think that they
see it.
do. As for the airing versus the order, I know that's not always the same in production. Just to briefly refer to my other fandom of Kim Possible, like the production order versus the airing order is sometimes just different, and that is just how it is. As far as the dubbing goes as well, I'm not sure. Our friend of Queen of Fairies may be able to provide some light on that, and if she gets back to us, we will report back in the next episode, I guess. But no, I do find it really interesting how long it is until we see, like, for instance, the mountain sector, which is a significant part of the canon, you know? Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe it's not the first time we see it. It's definitely the first time there's, like, an
Yeah.
attack on the
It's the first time that
mountains.
we see it.
Right.
Is it the first time the Lyoko warriors see it? We don't know. We're not sure. We talked about that in Teddy Godzilla. Like, is that the second ever Xano attack? Is that, you know, multiple times now they've kind of fought this
Right,
thing?
and we are 2 episodes in right now into the show, like, you know, as a new viewer might be, and the only sector that they've shown off is the desert.
For sure. I guess just to kind of since we're talking pretty meta here about the creators and editors, etc., I do have an excerpt from an interview of Thomas Roman, one of the creators of Code Lyoko, and the idea of the return to the past, I guess, was not originally in his ideas. So the quote from him is as follows. My dream was really to create a serial, but French TV channels don't like this kind of series because they like to broadcast and rebroadcast the episodes at varying hours of the day, and without needing to worry about which order they should be in. Episodes of a serial are more difficult to schedule, and it can be difficult for people to take interest in a series in the middle of its run. Unfortunately, the writing team therefore developed the episodes as independent from one another for the most part. So yeah, I think that kind of goes with that running order question here about how, I guess to an extent it doesn't matter, because they were, especially in season 1, not designed to be that way. I do believe, though I don't have a quote for it, that the Return to the Past was executive meddling of like, we need a reset button somehow to kind of make sure that people can come in every episode and like don't need any prior knowledge, etc., etc. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much impact Running Order has in season 1, honestly.
I mean, the emotional arcs, I mean, they're definitely quite inconsistent, but a better order.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of like going from like episodes where people act less mature to where like people act more mature. So I definitely
routine.
Routine definitely early, and I mean, it'd have to be late because, you know, it's the routine, but at the same time, they all act so teens. Ugh.
That's the thing. I think a lot of inconsistency boils down to they're 13-year-olds. So, you know, as far as like fanfiction goes or headcanon goes or analysis goes, that's a pretty good way to handwave a lot of inconsistency. But also, you know, we like to analyze. So
yeah, I put stuff like Amnesia early because Cece is pretty bad in that one.
She's literally at her worst in that.
God, she's awful.
What else? The Girl of the Dreams early. Because but it has to be...
oh my god, that one, I forgot about that one, probably because I hate it.
Blocked from your mind out of sheer trauma.
Oh my god, no, not that it's a bad episode, I just get secondhand embarrassment every time Jeremy talks to Talia.
Like, it's so hard to watch that episode.
Like, yeah, like, why? Come on, honey. Like, she doesn't look a single thing like your wife.
I mean, her personality is so different. And, like, she literally gives Yumi a death glare for no reason, and you're just watching,
I really like
why?
that, though. Like, I think it really speaks to Jeremy's absolute desperation to see Aelita. He loves her so much, and he's so desperate for her to be there, that this, like, coincidental lookalike turns up and he's like, no, it's gotta be her. Like, he is so desperate for that to be reality that it really can't.
Right,
and
totally. That's what's kind of sad too, because
sad.
The other three are like, okay, Jeremy, like, come back down to earth. That's not her. It's a coincidence. Like, just because you can't get in touch with Aelita on Lyoko doesn't mean that you miraculously materialized her overnight. How would she even know to get to Caddick from the factory?
You can see
he's just...
You can see his train of thought. You're like, you can absolutely see his train of thought, but also, like, you can also see why it's completely illogical. And it's also an interesting contrast because Jeremy is, like, quote unquote, the logical one, the smart one. And to see him acting so much on emotion and desperation and love and loneliness, etc. It's really interesting. Oh, I can't wait to get to that episode. I know it's, like, universally, like, pretty panned, but I think it's great for analysis, so...
Fair enough. But yeah, like, so I put stuff like Amnesia, The Girl of the Dreams and whatnot early. Then of course Just in Time probably still in the middle, because it's then later, I mean, I think Zero Gravity Zone and like the robots and whatnot are pretty good late episodes. Frontier 2, Killer Music definitely. Rock Bottom, maybe I'd put it more in the early middle. And then, like, maybe separate Plagued and Swarming Attack so they're not next to each other.
Yeah.
Because,
they are right next to each other in airing order, aren't they?
Yeah, Plagued is 11 and then Swarming Attack is 12. Swarming Attack is where Ulrich nearly, like, lets his classmates die because of his fifis. So I'd probably put that early. And then Plagued is where Rosa beats up a quadrillion rats. So
I love Plagued. I'm excited for Plagued.
Yeah.
Dianna, do you have any thoughts on airing order? Anything in particular that if you were recommending to a first-time watcher they should watch first, etc.?
That's a really good question. I definitely feel like I agree more with Quater's analysis, because honestly, it's been so long since I've like sat down and watched the show in full. Like I've seen the episodes that we play during the watch parties. I watched it a while ago with the kind of like along with the RTTP podcast. But like it's been a long time since I've sat down and watched it and really thought about it in terms of like that aspect. I do definitely agree with separating the airing order of Plagued and Swarming Attack, because they're basically like the same attack, just different animals. And I mean the overall plot is different, but like the attacks are the same. So I also, what would you guys think about Cruel Dilemma in terms of the maturity aspect of Jeremy specifically? Because he kind of has to, well, he has to choose between Yumi and Aelita to bring back to Earth, and there's no choice. And the fact that he even like deliberates on it is really telling.
I don't have any I don't have any concrete theories about episode order other than like vaguely in the middle, because it kind of seems like the peak of Jeremy's arc. But oh my god, I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for Jeremy and Yumi's conversation after that happened. Yumi just coming into his room like, dude, what the fuck?
Like, why? And Aelita even, and obviously we'll talk about this when we get to the episode, but Aelita even says like, Yumi is already so much a part of your world. Why wouldn't you bring her back?
Yeah.
Like, hello.
To be fair, I don't really remember him putting much of a struggle.
Yeah, for sure. Like, he's pretty
No,
chill
I
about
don't
it.
remember either, but he did definitely, like, pause to think about it.
He definitely had to think, which, like, says enough alone.
Yeah.
But it also says quite a lot about him that, like, he decided to, like, let go of his one goal. Like, the reason he's putting himself and the entire world really through everything to get Yumi.
Again, season 1 has the best character moments, and that is informed in part by the Monster of the Week format. Just saying, like, it lets the characters breathe, it lets the world breathe, and it gives us some incredible moments and really, like, draws out the nuances of the dynamics between these kids.
Yeah, and I really wish that we got more of Jeremy and Yumi's friendship in later seasons, because that's such a prominent aspect of season 1, I feel, and we were robbed for the whole rest of the series.
We were robbed, and that is what fanfic is for, but I want more of it in the show, you know?
Yeah, like the only Jeremy, Yumi, I mean, there's probably quite a few, but the only one I can remember right now is in like Temptation, where she literally like breaks into an ambulance for him, which is pretty funny, not gonna lie. But
no, for sure. Yeah, well, let's chalk that up to another discussion topic, eh? We can definitely talk about platonic relationships in the show and showcase some of our favourite moments. But other than that, I think we're done, right? I think we're done. Are we done?
yeah.
Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I
Okay,
think
we're good.
so.
Sweet. So,
No.
as always, folks, we want to know your thoughts about anything and everything Code Lyoko. Email us at apodcastwithoutdanger@gmail.com and tell us what you're thinking. Someone asked about what kinds of emails we'd want, and I'd say, like, if you want to add your thoughts about Seeing Is Believing, which is this episode, or if you want to get ahead of us and send in your thoughts on Holiday in the Fog, which is the next episode, so we can read them, like, at the end of our recap, then absolutely feel free to do that. Give us your ratings out of 5, your headcanons, any fun trivia that you think we might want to know or that we might end up missing out, etc. Go for it. Like, we would love to hear from you. Also, give us a tweet on Code Lyoko Pod at Twitter. Also, I don't know about you two, but I'm curious. Who is listening here who's active in the fandom already, who hasn't thought about Code Lyoko in, like, literally years and is just here for the nostalgia? And if anyone here, for whatever crazy reason, happens to be listening for the first time and has never seen this show before, like, first of all, why are you here? How did you get here? And, like, what do you think? Like, let us know. We want to hear from you guys. Like, we would absolutely love for you to email in, to contact us, to chat to us on Discord, etc. Yeah, no, like, please get in touch. Dianna, do you want to plug the social media, etc.? the Discord, and so on?
Yeah, like Sol said, if you would like to email us like Connor and Mary did, you can do that at a podcastwithoutdanger@gmail.com. If you would like to follow us on Twitter, you can do that at Code Lyoko Pod on Twitter. We also have a link tree, which has all of our links in one place that is pinned in our Twitter account. So it should be the first thing that you see. You can find us on social media individually, as well as our works on AO3 individually. And we should have a permanent invite link to our Discord up there as well, if you would like to talk to us in real time. We've had a lot of cool discussions and fan art and fics shared in that space, and we're always looking to grow our community.
The Discord is a really fun place to be right now. Genuinely, like, I've really enjoyed what's going on there. All right, well, that's it for this episode. Thank you once again for tuning in. Please check the episode footnotes for our social media links, as Dianna mentioned, and all the other bits and bobs discussed in this episode. If you have a question or comment you want us to address on the podcast, please drop us a line at apodcastwithoutdanger@gmail.com or join our Discord server. Thank you for all that hype so far. We hit 100 listens as of yesterday, which is pretty fucking awesome, honestly.
Yeah, that's insane. I cannot believe 100 listeners
seriously.
in the first episode.
Hyped as hell.
Wow.
Amazing. All right, thank you, folks. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, seriously.
We'll see you next week when we're discussing episode 3, Holiday in the Fog. That's all for now. Thank you and au revoir.